everyone, it's me the Jonin Monkey again, and welcome to another episode of VGT Side Quest. This video will basically be a vlog, and I've got to be honest, it won't contain that much visual flair. I was thinking about doing it for a long time, but the honest truth is, I'm recording this to get my opinion out there, and I don't want to waste too much time and energy on this, especially since I've already got several talk-through parts of the VGT review that need attention. So I apologise for that, but I hope the content and discussion of this video will be interesting enough to make up for it. So, enough dawdling, let's get going. This is something I've been wanting to talk about for a while, but what motivated me to finally go out and do it was a question sent to me by Roy Havenstone. Not for Monkey Broadcast, this is just something he sent to me in private over Skype. Anyway, Roy linked me to a video made by Egoraptor. To be more precise, it was a sequelitis video in which he compared The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past to The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. And generally, he was more in favour of A Link to the Past than Ocarina. This has already caused controversy since Ocarina of Time is one of those critical darlings. It's like a film buff making fun of Citizen Kane, you know, it's not something you could do without expecting lots of flack, but he did it. And it was an okay video for the most part. I'll admit, I'm not personally a fan of Egoraptor's style of humour, and his actual arguments, well, I think they could have been worded better. Now, I could spend most of this vlog nitpicking all the individual arguments, like he was complaining how Ocarina of Time didn't let him go where he wanted to do and he had to get over an arbitrary checkpoint, but completely ignored the fact that A Link to the Past did exactly the same thing. But that'd be trivial and ignoring the argument as a whole. Basically, the overall argument for his video was that he hated the fact that Ocarina of Time spent so much time building context, because in his mind, it was just arbitrary checkpoints and he felt it was completely unnecessary. In his mind, Zelda was all about the questing. It was finding the caves and getting past all the traps in order to find the great treasure inside and slaying monsters, and that the focus on story in Ocarina of Time made it linear, meant he couldn't get into where he wanted, and provided context that he felt was completely unnecessary. He didn't need to know why Link was the hero. Because Link is the player character, he's a hero by default. As he puts it, the reason these NPCs aren't the hero is because they don't find questing fun. You, the player, find it fun. You want to explore these caves, you want to go on quests, you want to slay monsters. He went on to say that in books and films you have to explain why someone's the hero, but in games you can experience it, so he felt that the story only existed for arbitrary roadblocks. And apparently it was okay to Link to the Past because its story was apparently about hyping you up for the next quest. Like when it told you to go and get the Master Sword, you were willing to do that because it sounded like a cool weapon to get. Now, I don't agree with this, not just because it's dismissing story out of hand, but because of the phrase he kept using over and over again, which is part of a trend in game discussion that really rubs me up the wrong way. Throughout the entire video, Egoraptor kept talking about fun. They need to focus on the joy and fun of questing. They lost the sense of fun. And this irritates me because, and I cannot stress this enough, if you're listening to this video, please open your ears and let this sink in. Because I'm only going to say this once. Fun is not a universal term. Please stop using it in arguments, okay? I see this all the time in comments, like, there was an extra credits video that looked at Kanji, who, for those of you who don't know, is a character from Persona 4, who at one point is questioning his sexuality and how other people perceive that sexuality. And as extra credits was saying, it is a fascinating point and it's very progressive. But in the bloody comment section, someone wrote, yeah, but it's not fun to watch someone struggle with their sexual identity. And, it just really irritates me because it's like the idea of objective reviewing. It is bollocks, grade A bollocks. It does not mean anything, and it is certainly not universal. People find different things fun. People find basketball fun. People find chess fun. People find drawing fun. People find maths fun. And there's nothing wrong with any of that, because we all have different tastes. I know the internet conditions us to think that anyone who doesn't agree with our opinion is garbage and we should attack them for it, but it's just such a futile gesture. What I find fun isn't going to be enjoyable for many people, and I accept that. The reason I bring all of this up is an issue I was thinking of addressing even before Roy sent me that question on Skype. I have been growing distant from the Zelda series for a little while now. Normally, I'm a very keen Zelda fan, and like everyone else, I buy the games day one when they come out, and I play through them, I talk about how they're based in the and I'll play them a second time, and maybe they won't always hold up, but I still play and enjoy them. But then recently, A Link Between Worlds was released, and I just couldn't get excited for it. At the time, I told myself, well, that's because so many other things were being released at the same time, but I had plenty of opportunities. I could have rented the game, I could have bought it afterwards, or at the very least, I could have watched a Let's Play of it, but I just couldn't get myself to do it. I just wasn't interested in it. And recently I was trying to quantify why this was, why I was so underwhelmed by the experience, and why, despite all the positive reviews, I didn't go out and get it. My first thought was that it became like A Link to the Past, and led me to wonder. I've played through Link to the Past, so why does that not stick in my mind? Why do I have barely any recollections of A Link to the Past beyond one or two minor elements, like the boy with the flute, or the quest to rescue Zelda at the beginning of the game? And then I realised what it was. Those games have a greater focus on puzzle solving. Skyward Sword had this as well. Like, there is like one hub area where you can buy items and chat with the NPCs on the quest, but ultimately, when you get to the forest area, the lava area, the desert area, you're navigating what is essentially a mini-dungeon to reach a main dungeon. Like, it doesn't feel like an ecosystem or world, it just feels like a dungeon in disguise. And apparently, I need to do some more research to check if this is true, but apparently the reason why was because people had a problem with the overworlds of Twilight Princess and Ocarina of Time. The fact that people were just saying it was empty space that they walked across, that they didn't really feel like they were getting engaged. So they focused more on making the navigation a puzzle you have to solve in itself. But here's the thing. Those parts of a Zelda game are quite possibly my least favourite parts. Like, I've seen people I'm subscribed to post the top 10 favourite dungeons list, or I've seen Zelda Let's Plays where people talk about, oh, I love this dungeon, and the individual surprises. I don't care about any of that. I know it sounds strange to say, but I try to think back of the dungeons, and nothing comes up. Like, I remember vague aesthetic details, like, I remember thinking that the Shadow Temple was cool and just how eerie it was. Jabu Jabu's Belly was an interesting idea. That one golden temple place in Skyward Sword, that looked pretty cool. But aside from aesthetic differences, I don't care. The puzzles don't stick with me. Like, the water temple. This is a good example of this. When I started doing discussions, I kept seeing people saying like, oh, the water temple is the worst part of the game, but when Nintendo announced the remake, everyone was going, oh, I really hope the remake fixes the water temple. I honestly had no memories or frustrations of the water temple. The way everyone felt about the water temple is the exact same way I feel about every dungeon. You know, it's an annoying roadblock you have to get through in order to get to the parts of the game that I enjoy. I honestly do not have any love for the Zelda dungeons. I mean, yeah, I'll play through them, and there is a faint satisfaction when I get a puzzle right, but if they created a Zelda game where the dungeons disappeared, I honestly wouldn't care. When you create overworlds like that, where you have to perform a mini-dungeon in order to get to the main dungeon, I lose interest entirely because it becomes a long chore with no variety to it. The only thing that kept me going through Skyward Sword was that the characters were so good, but generally, when your gameplay is nothing but constant puzzles, I do not find that fun. Not in the slightest. That's why I got more and more irritated with Eagle Raptor's video, because he kept talking like fun was this universal term. Like, everyone loves questing, right? Not me. That's not the parts of Zelda I enjoy. Put this all into context. My top 3 Legend of Zelda games are as follows. Majora's Mask at number 1, Wind Waker at number 2, and Spirit Tracks at number 3. And if you're curious, Ocarina of Time would be number 4, and Twilight Princess would be number 5. The reason those are my top 3 is because they focus on 2 elements. The first is world building. Whilst I'm not keen on puzzles, I am keen on exploration. I love overworlds where the land stretches before you and you can travel across this world and then find a part of some unique geography, and then you're led into this new town that has a strange new culture to it. Like, some of the best moments in Ocarina of Time for me was when you're playing it for the first time. You leave your small Kokiri hub and you see this massive open field that stretches far and wide. You wander across. You can stop at a farm if you wish, but otherwise you can keep going towards this massive castle, and when you step inside, it's this massive market town that's bustling with people. Yeah, sure, when you look back at it now, it's on rails, but the fact that there's so many people you can talk to, and there are so many different shops inside it, it's all really amazing. And the reason I love Majora's Mask on top of that is because Majora goes even further and develops all of the NPCs. Like, okay, they're not three-dimensional characters or anything, but they have lives, they have motives, they have goals, and you can help with those lives and motives. And you can see the consequences of helping people. To me, a hero isn't someone who enjoys questing. That's an adventurer. A hero is a self-sacrificing individual who is willing to think about others. And me being a guy who's probably too empathetic for his own good, I like helping people. And I like playing games that allow me to do that. On top of the world building, you also have characters. Like I said, I love Majora's Mask for the detailed NPCs. I like Wind Waker because of Link's family and the way he interacted with them. Tetra and how she ended up being snarky, but it grew on you after a while. Midna was one of the most positive things in Twilight Princess and the arc she went on. Heck, the reason why Spirit Tracks is up there, despite the problems it has, is because I really love the relationship between Link and Zelda. I also really like Brine. I also like the fact that there are loads of interesting side quests in Spirit Tracks which are about helping people. And if it makes you seem like I don't care about the action at all, of course I do. I love the boss battles in Zelda. It's why I'm willing to slog through all of those darn dungeons in the first place. And whilst Ocarina of Time may not be in my top 3, I can assure you that I really love the boss battles in that game. That has some of the most amazing looking bosses in the series. But I also don't mind questing in different ways, like the quests that stick in my mind are either the ones that work well with story, or require you to use different tactics from the standard puzzle solving. The Gerudo Fortress in Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask is a good example of this. And the Triforce quest. Yes, you heard me. Over time I've come to appreciate that Triforce quest, and I do enjoy the individual small challenges that were in it. My only problem with it is the extortionate prices Tinjil charged for map translation. But otherwise, it's a nice change of pace that encourages exploration. And of course, like I said, I'm a story person. Eager Raptor may have felt that the context is unnecessary, but I think it's good to have that there. It's not so much about why the hero is the hero, but what the hero does. It's great to have that context to know who you're going up against and why it's such a big event. Like, when you finally get to take on the Helm Rock King in Wind Waker, the giant bird, that was one of the most satisfying boss battles in Zelda, because after all that bird did to you at the start of the game, after kidnapping your sister, after chucking you into the ocean, having the chance to finally smack it down, watching it fly into the sky only to explode at a mass of dark energy, that felt so satisfying after everything you had done, and it was a great way to mark the halfway point of the game. And other story moments as well. The whole Romani sisters quest in Majora's Mask, the shimmer in Link's eyes as he waves goodbye to his family in Wind Waker, that cute moment at the end of Spirit Tracks when Link and Zelda hold hands as they watch the spirits fly off. Those were great moments and I enjoyed seeing them unfold. Ocarina of Time has some of these qualities, but not entirely. That's the reason it's in 4th place. And it also brings up another issue I wanted to talk about. Roy's question led on to ask, is there a way to get people like Eager Raptor, who seem to be about instant gratification, more interested in the story? Is there a way to get the story working with the gameplay? That's a tricky one to answer. Even if you ignore the whole different tastes angle, it's hard to say because of Nintendo's practices. getting writers on board early on, so they have a better idea of what the rest of the team is going for, and having that in mind when you sit down to write the story would be beneficial and will make for better game narratives overall. But at the same time, I don't think that's Ocarina of Time's problem here. It's not that the story doesn't work with the gameplay as such, it's more of a bad habit Nintendo has, which creeps into everything, including their writing. In my mind, Ocarina of Time's strengths are its sweeping, wondrous world and the different towns and cultures that exist within it, as well as the atmosphere it creates, and that one twist where Ganondorf takes over the world. But otherwise, speaking on a purely narrative level, the story falls flat, and I can understand why it didn't engage Egoraptor, and why he felt it was more of an arbitrary roadblock. For the longest time, especially back in 1998, Nintendo saw all characters as gameplay functions first and people second. Now this is one way to start a character design, but you have to develop it more than that. Once you've thought of the gameplay functions you can do, you have to make them seem like real people. Give them personality, backstory if it's possible. When you think back to the main characters of Ocarina of Time, and just forget their roles, I found, to my horror, that Wise applied to 90% of the cast. It was not funny. The Deku Tree was Wise. Darunia was Wise, albeit with a dancing streak. Impa was Wise. The Owl was Wise. King Zora was sort of Wise. The only character I could think of who had an actual personality was Ruto, who was kind of high and mighty and possibly self-absorbed. Otherwise, I was drawing blank with everyone. It was only like vague concepts about who their role was supposed to be, like Zelda is the princess, Saria is best friends forever. Yeah, Kanabero Gero, or however you pronounce his name, exist purely as an information dump. Hell, Navi is the worst example of it, because she is your companion, the one who stays by your journey through thick and thin, and her role is purely to provide exposition and tell you where to go. There is no attempt to characterize her, no attempt to give her any kind of backstory or any purpose beyond that. Right to the point where, even in the ending, after everything you've been through, she just flew off. There was no reason why, there was no attempt to try and make it tragic or give any kind of context to it. It's just, well, I'm done now, my planet needs me, bye. That's why I can see why Egoraptor ended up being frustrated with the story. Even if it, when you get right down to it, it served the same function as A Link to the Past. Because a lot of the time, it was just characters dumping information on you. That's why I prefer Majora's Mask and The Wind Waker. Because those games, they actually bother to characterize the individual people. They don't just spout information, they show personalities, they try to engage with you, they try to make you care, and that's the important thing. So that's why I'm saying, if you're going to write an adventure game, even if it's just like a very basic one-note personality, that's better than having a character who exists to be a roadblock or a living Wikipedia. Sure, this won't win over everyone, but I can guarantee you it will get a lot more people interested in your game. But ultimately, that's not the direction Nintendo's going in. And if it's true that this is the demand of the fanbase, that they want a greater focus on dungeons and block puzzles, I'm perfectly willing to accept it. It's not what I find fun, but I can still go back and play Majora's Mask and Wind Waker, and there are other games in similar styles I can play instead. I'm not going to stamp my foot and say that Zelda sucks now and everything should be tended to me. If I'm in the minority, who am I to stop other people from having their fun? That's the mindset I had for a long time. But recently, I am having some hope. Like, Hyrule Warriors, whether it turns out to be good or just mindless button mashing, I'm going to pick it up and I probably will enjoy playing it because it looks like a great change of pace and I'll be happy to have a Zelda game focused more on combat. And we just got the announcement that the Zelda game with the Wii U will be open world, so it's possible it goes back to the style of Zelda games I like, but we'll have to wait and see with that one. I guess you could say the next Zelda game will be the deciding factor. Will I continue playing the series or will I respectfully bow out? So, whether or not you agree or disagree with me about Zelda games, just remember to enjoy yourselves and remember definitely that fun is not universal. People enjoy different things and that's okay. In the meantime, if you want to see more vlogs from me in this style, maybe talking about some other gaming narrative issue, let me know in the comments. But for now, I've been the Jonin Monkey, and until next time, cheerio!